Good morning. I will call to order the October 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Count? Here. Supervisor Nelson?
Here.
Supervisor Lavanino?
Here.
Supervisor Hartman?
Here.
And Chair Williams?
Here. At this time, please join us in pledging allegiance to our flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item of business is the minutes from the September 19th meeting. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. CEO's report.
Chair Williams, I do have one brief announcement from the Office of Emergency Management. There will be a nationwide test of the emergency alert system and wireless emergency alert system tomorrow, Wednesday, October 4th at 11:20 in the morning. The alert is conducted by FEMA and the FCC. Emergency alert system messages are transmitted on all local radio and television stations with an alert tone or scrolling a text across the bottom of the screen. Wireless emergency alert messages are transmitted to cell phones and look like text messages that are accompanied by a distinct attention tone and vibration to all cell phones that are on and within range of a cell tower. The Office of Emergency Management has posted information about this test on readysbc.org in English and in Spanish. Information was also shared via press release on multiple county social media accounts, and that concludes the CO report.
Thank you. And I also have one addition. On Sunday, I had the pleasure to award Santa Barbara, or to present a Santa Barbara Beautiful Award to Dignity Moves for our project that we partnered with them at 1016 Santa Barbara Street or Garden Street. And of course, Santa Barbara, I thought this was amazing in that it's one of the first times, it is definitely the first time that Santa Barbara Beautiful has ever given an award usually presented to the nicest looking house in town to a transitional homeless housing. So I'll pass it around, but a great partnership, and of course not possible without Good Samaritan. Madam Clerk, are there any announcements or changes to our agenda today?
Chair Williams and members of the board, I do have a few quick announcements this morning. We received a withdrawal request from the department for departmental item number 3. Departmental item number 3 is from the Planning and Development Department. It is a hearing to consider recommendations regarding an appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of revision to permit condition number 38, MM Bio 16, Golden Egotake permit for the Strauss Wind Energy Project, case number 23 RVP 31. This is in the 3rd and 4th districts. The applicant has withdrawn their appeal, and as such, the department has revised their recommended actions, requesting that the board accept the applicant's withdrawal. Lastly, for the Board of Supervisors' methods of public participation and to provide public comment on general public comment or an item on the board's agenda, please see page 2 of the agenda. Individuals that would like to provide verbal public comment may do so via Zoom by registering in advance via the link available on page 2. If you have any questions, please contact the clerk of the board's office at 805-568-2240. That concludes my announcements for today.
Would any board members like to pull any items from the administrative agenda?
A6, please.
Thank you. Can I get a motion on the balance of the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? A6.
Chair Williams and members of the board, administrative item 6 is from the County Executive Office. It is to consider recommendations regarding a nomination to name Refugio Road pedestrian trail in honor of Karina D. Velasquez. This project is located within the the 3rd District, This item requires a unanimous vote.
At 6:55 p.m. on Thursday, March 26, 2015, 15-year-old Karina Velasquez was on her way home from school when she stepped out into the crosswalk at the intersection of Refugio and Highway 246 and was hit by a car. She died a few hours later, one day before her 16th birthday. It's 8.5 years later, but the community still remembers the girl who often stayed late to help put away books and straighten up papers, the girl with the inquisitive mind who was a very hard worker, and the girl who loved animals, especially cats, whose motto was, "Never forget to smile." Her father describes her as a girl who had been a little shy around new people and situations and was just beginning to blossom and come out of her shell. Her father helped us build the demonstration part of the path, including a small footbridge. We would like to place a boulder with a plaque there. The Santa Ynez High School Board approved placing the marker on school property next to the path, which is placed in the county right-of-way. Karina's father, Jose Velasquez Jr., wrote to the high school board in support of this, saying, "It has been 8+ years since we've lost our daughter, and we've been missing a piece of our hearts every day. My hope is that the path will be a safe place for people to walk and ride bikes away from traffic, and that no other families have to suffer the loss of a family member in this way. We would like to have Karina's name on the path so that she is not forgotten. Hopefully putting her name on it will increase awareness of the hazards of walking on the road and will make it more real as to what can happen in a flash if you let your guard down. I very much hope this board will join the high school board in unanimous support to name the trail in Karina's memory." Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hartman. Can we get a motion on A6?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Let's go to administrative item number 22.
Chair Williams and members of the board, administrative item 22 is sponsored by Supervisor Williams. It is to adopt a resolution of commendation retroactively honoring Carrie Gallagher of the District Attorney's Office as July 2023 Employee of the Month of Santa Barbara County. Joining us here in person, we have Carrie Gallagher, District Attorney John Savernock, and Chief Deputy District Attorney Ann Knudsen. Please make your way to the podium, and I will read the resolution into the record. Whereas Carrie Gallagher exemplifies the county's organizational values of accountability, customer focus, equity and inclusion, innovation, trust, and ethics. And whereas Carrie models the transformative behaviors of collaborative problem solving, alignment with the county's vision, risk-taking, data-driven decision-making, and strategic thinking. And whereas juvenile justice is an important component of the criminal justice system, Carrie is responsible for the prosecution of all juvenile cases in North County, from the time of filing through sentencing, all of which she handles with exceptional care, judgment, and conscientiousness while protecting public safety, addressing the concerns of victims, protecting the rights of juveniles, and upholding the highest ethical standards. And whereas Carrie actively engages in our community and supports our juveniles and public safety by working with probation, the courts, the defense bar, local law enforcement, school districts, community-based service organizations, child welfare services, the diversion of treatment programs to ensure that the juveniles in our community are getting the appropriate support, services, and rehabilitation to protect public safety and to ensure justice. And whereas Carrie facilitates communications through workflows through all of the county's criminal justice partners, including providing training, keeping up to date with new areas of law, and working to continue to grow and develop special intervention programs like Heart Court. Now, therefore, be it hereby ordered and resolved that this Board of Supervisors recognizes Carrie Gallagher as Employee of the Month for July 2023, passed and adopted today.
Chair Williams, members of the board, just a few brief comments. One with me today is actually Chief Deputy Sonia Baeste. But about Carrie, many years ago, Carrie was actually a mentee of my predecessor, Joyce Dudley. I'm sure Joyce would tell you all that she imparted a large part of Carrie's sense of justice in her, but I think Carrie had that innately. After establishing an already well-established career, Carrie came to us with a passion for juvenile justice. And juvenile justice is a different function than general adult prosecutions. There is a significant effort on rehabilitation, education, changing behaviors. Combine that, there are also some very serious crimes which demand a public safety response. And one of the many beauties of Carrie is that she can switch between those roles so easily. She identifies the young individuals that need help, need a helping hand, have grown up in difficult circumstances, and have an absolute ability to change. And in that, she is such a wonderful collaborator, which speaks to what we are doing as a county. The goal of our county is to work together with all systems, all entities, all the organizations inside and outside the county family that come into play in any field. What our focus is on collaboration, and Carrie is phenomenal at that. Of working with service providers, working with probation, who has such an important role, a critical role in juvenile justice, working with police agencies and working with defense counsel. So I've got to say, when Carrie came to us with a passion for juvenile justice, we were a very lucky office. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
We thank you so much for your work. A23.
Chair Williams and members of the board, administrative item 23 is sponsored by Supervisor Williams. It is to adopt a resolution of commendation honoring Adrian Garcia of the General Services Department as October 2023 Employee of the Month in Santa Barbara County. Joining us here, we have Adrian. If you will please make your way to the podium, I will read the resolution into the record. Whereas Adrian Garcia, building maintenance worker, exemplifies the county's organizational values of accountability, customer focus, equity and inclusion, innovation, trust, and ethics. And whereas Adrian models the transformative behaviors of collaborative problem solving, alignment with the county's vision, risk-taking, data-driven decision-making, and strategic thinking. And whereas his career started in the Parks Department in July of 2018, working in the Santa Barbara Veterans Building as an extra help employee. He was then promoted to the General Services Department in March of 2019, working at the Santa Barbara Main Jail. He was then moved to the downtown campus to train with a long-term maintenance employee known as Legend, and Adrian quickly earned the nickname Little Legend. And whereas Adrian is responsible for 11 downtown county-owned buildings consisting of approximately 370,000 square feet of building space, and he takes great pride in managing these facilities. Adrian successfully responds to an average of 1,700 work requests with a smile and exceptional professionalism. He displays incredible dedication to the organization, and Adrian is usually the first person on scene to respond to building maintenance emergencies. And whereas during the recent local emergencies in January and February, he provided extremely loyal service to the county and community, working long hours protecting all of the downtown facilities from damaging heavy rainfall and flooding. Throughout these emergencies, Adrian made tremendous personal sacrifices to be away from his family and ensure the county facilities avoided any major flood damages. And now therefore be it hereby ordered and resolved that this Board of Supervisors recognizes Adrian Garcia as Employee of the Month of October 2023, passed and adopted today.
Chair Williams, Supervisors, thank you very much for this recognition for Adrian. I know he's pretty humble and didn't really want to be up here, but appreciate it. And but I also want to recognize the rest of the folks you see in the back in the blue shirts, the rest of the facilities maintenance team, and on a day in and day out basis who take care of all our county facilities, and after hours, weekends, holidays, they're there to respond. And so my hat's off to all of them as well. Thank you.
They sure wanted you up there, Adrian. Administrative item number 24.
Chair Williams and members of the board, administrative item 24 is sponsored by Supervisor Williams and Supervisor Hartman. It is to adopt a resolution proclaiming the month of October 2023 as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Santa Barbara County. Joining us here in person, we have Domestic Violence Solutions and Veronica Cubillo. Please join us at the podium, and I will now read the resolution into the record. Whereas domestic violence is a pervasive issue that affects individuals and families across our nation, regardless of age, gender, race, and social economic status. And whereas National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, observed in October, provides an opportunity to raise public awareness about domestic violence and its devastating impacts on survivors and communities. And whereas survivors of domestic violence often face physical, emotional, and psychological trauma, it is crucial to provide support and resources to help them rebuild their lives. And whereas promoting awareness and education about domestic violence is essential in preventing future instances of abuse and fostering a society that values respect, empathy, and healthy relationships. And whereas here in Santa Barbara County, Domestic Violence Solution, a premier not-for-profit organization that provides safety, shelter, and support countywide for individuals and families affected by domestic violence, and collaborates with community partners to raise awareness regarding the cause, prevalence, and impact of domestic violence, will be organizing a series of community events and encourages all to take part in raising awareness about domestic violence and the ways that all of us can contribute towards its prevention. Now therefore be it hereby ordered and resolved that this Board of Supervisors officially recognizes the month of October as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month and pledges to work together as a community to raise awareness, support survivors, and promote efforts to eradicate domestic violence from our society. Passed and adopted today.
Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to take the chance to plug in that we do have our vigil this Thursday here in Santa Maria. For any locals that would like to attend, it's going to be held at the Machado Plaza. I believe begins at 5:30. So we'll love to have anybody that can join us to continue to bring awareness to the topic. So thank you, guys.
Number 25.
Chair Williams and members of the board, administrative item 25 is sponsored by Supervisor Capps and Supervisor Hartman. It is to adopt a resolution proclaiming the month of October 2023 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in Santa Barbara County. Joining us here in person, we have Director Hamami, and via Zoom, we have June English. Director Hamami, if you will make your way to the podium, I will now read the resolution into the record. Whereas in the U.S., 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. And when breast cancer is detected early in a localized stage, the 5-year survival rate is 98% as a result. Women should work with their medical providers to establish a plan to detect the disease in the early stages, which includes regular mammograms, clinical breast exams, and self-breast exams. And whereas healthcare plans cover preventative services such as breast exams, the Public Health Department Every Woman Counts program provides support for breast cancer screening and diagnostic services for low-income women who do not have the resources for this important service. And whereas in the past fiscal year, Santa Barbara County Every Woman Count health educators provided 1,350 tri-county individuals with breast cancer education and referrals to free screenings. In addition, providers whom partnered with Every Woman Counts conducted free breast cancer screening and diagnostic services for 6,882 tri-county individuals. And whereas, in the past fiscal year, Santa Barbara County Every Woman Counts has provided 124 Tri-County women with patient navigation services from the program's nursing staff to support patient compliance and eliminate barriers to timely screening, completion of diagnostic testing, and facilitating referral for treatment. And whereas we are in support of Santa Barbara County's Every Woman Counts prevention efforts. Now therefore be it hereby ordered and resolved that this Board of Supervisors does proclaim the month of October 2023 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month to promote the health of all residents in the County of Santa Barbara, passed and adopted today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the resolution. And as we heard, although we are seeing an increase in the diagnosis of breast cancer rates, we are also seeing a decrease in death from that cancer. And this highlights the importance of early detection and screening. And this is what this program is all about. I don't know if Ms. English, June, if you are with us on Zoom, if you want to say a few words.
Thank you very much. We are very happy to be out in the community this month, and this is our biggest month for outreach, actually. So please encourage anyone you know who wants the information about our services for the uninsured or underinsured to please contact our office. And also let us know if you have any suggestions for further outreach. And we very much value our collaboration with all the community partners that we have, and it's been a wonderful service to be able to reach women in our communities and steer them toward the care that we feel that they deserve to have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Administrative item number 26.
Chair Williams and members of the board, administrative item 26 is sponsored by Supervisor Hartman. It is to adopt a resolution proclaiming October 4th, 2023 as National Bike and Walk to School Day in Santa Barbara County. Joining us here in person, we have Ken Dahman from MOVE, Santa Barbara County. Will you please make your way to the podium and I will read the resolution into the record. Whereas promoting active and sustainable modes of transportation is essential for health and well-being of our youth. And whereas National Bike and Walk to School Day encourages students to engage in physical activity and reduce their carbon footprint by walking or biking to school. And whereas the Safe Routes to School program, as established by the U.S. Department of Transportation, plays a pivotal role in creating safe environments for students to walk and bike to school by providing infrastructure improvements, educational programs, and community engagement. And whereas the benefits of walking and biking to school include improved physical fitness, reduced traffic congestion, and increased community connectedness. And whereas National Bike and Walk to School Day fosters a sense of independence, responsibility in students as they navigate their neighborhood safely. And whereas celebrating National Bike and Walk to School Day in October 4th, 2023 aligns with our commitment to creating a more sustainable and active future for our youth. Now, therefore, be it hereby ordered and resolved that this Board of Supervisors supports the designation of October 4th, 2023 as National Bike and Walk to School Day and encourages schools, parents, and communities to participate in this meaningful event to promote the health and well-being of our students and the environment. Passed and adopted today.
Thank you, Council, so much for this resolution. I think it's really important to highlight the active transportation capabilities of our communities, and working with Move Santa Barbara County, I've been doing that for the last 7.5 years. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity. Just wanted to introduce one of my coworkers, Terry Bircher. He's taken our North County education program from 5 schools to all 20 in Santa Maria Bonita School District. Also working from Lompoc and San Ynez Valley as well, so it's an honor to do this work. Thank you guys so much.
Supervisor Hartman.
Thank you. There was an image up of me my first day of school, first grade, riding my bike. So I'm a passionate advocate for getting kids out of cars, walking and biking to school. Gina Fisher did that without my permission, but
Nice.
but you can see that I started young, and I was really impatient to be off. I'd taken my bike safety classes and was ready to ride, but only later I learned my father had followed me the whole 2 miles in his car to make sure that I actually did it the way I had been taught. But my bike meant freedom. It meant independence. And as a kinetic kid, the ride was a good way for me to burn off some energy before I settled down in the classroom. So tomorrow I'm going to be at Solvang Elementary School with the CHP to mark National Bike and Walk to School Day and encouraging kids to arrive on bike and foot. We plan to start organizing now for next year because we'd like to see throughout the valley, and I'd like to see throughout the county, where we have walking school buses and riding bike trains, and really allowing every kid to have the kind of freedom that I enjoyed when I was a youngster. I consider it to be a birthright, really, the ability to get outside, stand on their own 2 feet, and propel themselves to school. So MOVE is working with South County schools one by one, identifying obstacles that are barriers that are making it hard for kids to get to school. And as you heard from Ken, they're very active in North County. But I think this is really important for kids' health and well-being. So anyway, celebrate Walk to School Day, Bike to School Day.
Well, Yash and Kaya are big supporters of your efforts, and we'll be enacting it on Wednesday as well. Okay, administrative item number 27.
Chair Williams and members of the board, administrative item 27 is sponsored by Supervisor Williams. It is to adopt a resolution proclaiming October 3rd, 2023 as Seasonal Flu Kickoff Day in Santa Barbara County. Joining us here in person, we have Director Hamame and Ann Carlisle. If you will please make your way to the podium, I will read the resolution into the record. Whereas the County of Santa Barbara wants all county residents to be healthy and protected from illness. Whereas Santa Barbara County is joining the Centers for Disease Control in their Seasonal Flu Kickoff Day to highlight the importance of flu vaccination during flu season. And whereas the Centers for Disease Control recommends a yearly flu vaccine for everyone 6 months of age and older as the first and most important step in protecting against the influenza disease. And whereas individuals who receive the flu vaccine may also protect people around them, including those who are more vulnerable to serious flu illness like babies and young children, older people, and people with certain chronic health conditions. And whereas flu vaccines are safe and effective, with hundreds of millions of Americans receiving flu vaccines over the past 50 years. Now, therefore, it is hereby ordered and resolved that this Board of Supervisors of Santa Barbara County does hereby proclaim October 3rd as Seasonal Flu Kickoff Day, passed and adopted today.
So thank you for the resolution, Mr. Chair. And my understanding that this is a tradition where you get the VIP treatment, we get you the shots to the podium, but today we're doing also an extra where we brought 100 doses, and anybody that is here that would love or would want a shot, then all they need to do is just walk to our station over there. We have the best team members with us. They have the magic touch. You will not feel anything. It's free. All you have to do is fill a very short form, and you can get your vaccine. We're here till noon, so anytime between now till noon, just make sure that you get yours. And as we have our team members giving the shot for our supervisors, I'm going to join you as well.
It looks like you're going to really test how tough those general services staff are. Oh, whoa. Now I'm pretty impressed with that. Boom. No, but I feel it run off.
Yeah, where'd everybody go?
Yeah.
I forgot about it. Dr. Answer. Yeah, I heard there was excitement last time, so.
No.
Thank you. And we have those buttons to show everyone to send you feedback. Where are you? Good. Alrighty. I got my COVID last week. For you. How'd you do it? I got my COVID prior.
Part of the reason why I do this is because I've been on support you, and part of the reason why it doesn't use you want you want to
Oh, wonderful. Oh, that's right. Yeah, thank you for supporting that. No problem. That is a problem. Very good. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Well, didn't feel a thing. So glad to hear that.
Okay, let's do this.
All right, let's do this.
We did.
Oh, you did? Oh.
What was that? I think a real, well, a really interesting social media post. If the person passes out.
I want to understand what they're saying. They have some issues that they're worried about trash.
Oh, and, yeah. You think our feelings really? Hey, you're supposed to be in my line. Did you hop over to another side?
Yes, I was.
Lisa
Lisa wanted to jump in, so I'm like, all right.
Oh,
I think they both want to stick a needle in my arm.
You find out, I get worried.
Being in various capacities as commissioner, counselor, all this stuff. I've been in Sacramento with the armed services testifying. I've been all over the place. So I'm familiar with the game.
Eagles, I'm okay with.
The only thing that bothers me
Okay with.
the ability to do something.
If it happens to me, I'm good. If it happens to like
I mean,
somebody else, yeah, a grandkid or something. Okay.
It's bothering. But we have one
no.
still
All right.
uses.
Well, yeah.
And she had
All good.
Thank you.
I know it. That's where you're at.
Which we should have.
And should know. I mean, I understand that. But at the same token, our priorities are not local. I have a problem with that. That really bothers me. But anyway, I'm glad you at least explained that to me. All you've been will approach it. I'm just sending the message. You know, I live there now. I know these people all my life. Young man, trying to behave himself. Yeah.
People who behave don't make it.
No, they don't make a shit. I agree with you 100%.
You know, Chris,
Yeah.
so Chris is doing all the improvements, or his group is doing all the improvements on West Street.
Right, got you. Okay, projection wise, when do we think it will have to be open? A year?
We're hoping to get the first two are done. We have one more. We're hoping to get it done
Well, we're getting a lot of flu shots done, but we do need to reconvene the meeting. Now is the time for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on general public comment?
Chair Williams and members of the board, we have one request to speak. George Alvarez here in Santa Maria.
Workman's comp case. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. I want to thank you for the assistance in the dredging of our river over there. Fantastic job. Of course, again, being Guadalupean, we waited 20-something years, not by your fault. Government has different priorities when it comes to the little people of our communities on that. I'm not too excited about our local congressperson. Didn't do a damn thing for us in Guadalupe. I'm vested in this little town, okay? Mr. Hart, another person, has to be called out and not doing anything when we need it as a community from that perspective. One concern some of the ranchers have on the aspect of completing the project is government has a tendency of being over the top when it comes to environmental issues and throws the human element outside. Critters are more important than human elements, okay? This is a problem we're having because how it ends up dredging down to a point on the fence, north side of the river, it seems to be totally narrow, and they have a fear, the farmers have a fear, that when you get that completed and the water comes in there, hits the bank, curves, it'll eat up and erode the levee eventually if it's not taken into consideration. I'm not an engineer. This is a concern farmers have, and we're spending a lot of tortillas on this issue, okay? And it's not becoming of intelligence to do something knowing the end result. It might be disastrous. We waited 23 years, fine. Now, on another note, we need, the county of Santa Barbara is one of the only few counties where police officers cannot make a judgment call on someone who might have mental issues on the 72-hour puff situation, as they call it, in the medical profession. We should have access to police officers with their training, should have the ability to make that call. I've been involved lately where it involved someone who had an epileptic seizure in downtown Guadalupe, and we called 911, we called paramedics, police department, and at the time when the person fell to the ground, I was there, he turned, he had a gun in his post right here. Loaded. 9:30 in the morning. Gun issue, yes, but mental health issue. We didn't have the ability to call mental health to get that situated, one-on-one, to make the analysis. Where's this guy coming from? 9:30 in the morning, carrying a gun? These are issues that are important in public safety where the county,
the city should have the intertwining communications of the experts to help. If not, let the police officers handle that from that perspective. All right? Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you. Departmental item number 1, winter storm preparation.
Chair Williams and members of the board, departmental item number 1 is from the Fire Department and Public Works Department. It is a hearing to consider recommendations regarding the 2023 through 2024 winter storm preparation.
Good morning, Board and Supervisors. Chair and Supervisors, thank you. That's what I was looking for. All right. This morning we'll provide a presentation here on preparations for the coming storm season, winter storm season. When I talk to National Weather Service, it's rare that you hear high percentage likelihood chances from Weather Service, right? And they're saying, we talked to a couple different offices and they say plus 90% on chances of El Nino. The thing about El Nino is though, it's more of a like 50-50 chance of whether it'll be wet or dry. So we are in an El Nino pattern. They agree with that. There we go. Sorry about that. We are in an El Nino pattern. Whether it'll be wet or dry is still kind of an unknown, but they think there's a high likelihood of a wet pattern for our area. And so as a county, we're looking to prepare for that. And we're going to go through some county preparations, infrastructure. We'll talk a little bit about some of our waterways, response coordination, private property, creek permitting, and we'll talk about what the community can also do to prepare as well. At this point, I'll turn it over to Walter, and he can provide updates on Public Works. Oh, hold on. I got you.
You got it?
There you go.
Good morning, Chair Williams, members of the board. I'm Walter Rubalcaba with Public Works, and I'll be providing an update on our preparation for the 23-24 storms. I do want to note that although we're expecting an El Nino this year, whether it's a dry year or wet season, our department goes through the same preparation every year, so we're not caught off guard. Next slide, please. So this is a summary of our current sites and a status update. Starting with transportation, there's approximately 169 locations or sites. We had about $56 million worth of damage, and 50 of those sites have been reopened. On the flood control side, we actually have 15 basins that have been cleared, and then we have 3 basins that are currently ongoing up here in the North County. We've also finished 5 dredging operations, and our debris sorting site, which is off of Cathedral Oaks up above the Emergency Operations Center, was sorted as of last week, and we'll begin off-hauling efforts starting this week. And I'll give an update on the Santa Maria River in a few more slides. Next slide, please. So looking at our reservoir and releases, I'll start with Cachuma. Cachuma is about 90% full. In comparison to last year at this time, it was about 30% full. So we'll begin discussions with the Bureau starting soon, Bureau of Reclamation soon, regarding any potential releases this year. Just so you're aware that the county provides feedback based on our knowledge and our modeling, but we are not the ultimate decision maker on those releases. If we get to the point where we feel releases are going to be of concern to any downstream communities or stakeholders, we will work with emergency management to communicate that and make sure that those stakeholders are notified, and we'll work through the Office of Emergency Management on that. Next slide, please. On the Twitchell Reservoir, it's about 20% full right now. The Santa Maria Water Conservation District continues to release 250 to 300 CFS continuously. They will continue to do that until the reservoir is empty, and we're currently expecting that to happen sometime in December. Now, what's different about the Twitchell Reservoir, as I mentioned on Cachuma, it's the Bureau of Reclamation. They're involved on the Twitchell Reservoir as well, but the decision makers are the Bureau, Army Corps, the Santa Maria Water Conservation District, and the county in that situation plays the same role. We're not the decision maker, but we have a placed at the table, and we provide input based on our knowledge and modeling. Now, there is an ongoing effort to change the release protocol. Supervisor Nelson's office and Lavanino's office have already begun those discussions, and Public Works will continue to support those efforts and try to change some of those protocols. And then similar to Kachuma, if the release is at Twitchell, plus the flows that are coming down Sisquoc, if they get to the point of concern, we will again work with our emergency management team to get proper notifications, and generally for the community of Guadalupe in this case. Next slide, please. So this is an update on the Santa Maria River. Work continues to progress. I'll start with transportation. There's 3 sites on West Main Street. The first site is just prior to the kiosk. That was completed already, and then there's another one that's about 1,000 feet past the kiosk. That work should be done by the end of October. And then there's a third site over closer to the Pacific Ocean. That site should be done by the end of December. On the flood control side, there are 2 projects that we're working on. There's a pilot channel that is upstream of State Route 1, downstream of Bonita School Road. That's going to be a pilot channel project, and the purpose of that project is there's water that is impeding on the levee at a sharp angle right now, so we're going to try to redirect that flow straight down the river. And then the second project is the project that we discussed on the 12th. That is the debris removal project. That's from State Route 1 down to the Pacific Ocean. That is currently about 40% complete. We still plan to complete that work by November 1st. However, we're going to continually go after an extension for the executive order has a deadline of November 1st. We're going to ask for a 30-day extension. And the reason we're going to do that is it gives us some flexibility on how we're doing this project. Right now, we are working 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, and the burn rate is high. If we were to get an extension of 30 days, we could consider backing off some of those overtime hours to try and save some of those tax dollars. Now, I do want to highlight, it says coordinated work with County Fire. County Fire started on September 11th doing vegetation removal, and it was very dense vegetation out there. They did great work. They've been extremely helpful. I also want to mention that the farmers, the adjacent property owners have been providing labor, equipment to help our efforts. The city of Guadalupe, their wastewater treatment plant operators have been helping to find us irrigation for the restoration project, and I should have mentioned the farmers have done that as well. The city of Guadalupe, the mayor, we couldn't ask for more. This coordination effort has been so great, and it's been so helpful, and it's really helping us meet that November 1st deadline. And with that, I'll pass it over to Kelly.
So just as an update with our coordination with the state, we were denied assistance from the state for construction. However, we are working with the state Department of Water Resources Flood Fight Division to work on pre-identification of what resources may be needed if some of the work that Public Works is doing is not enough to contain. If we have significantly high flows, we still want to have a plan in place. So we're pre-scripting, pre-identifying those resources, working with the state to do that.
Okay, and just for the sake of time, I've covered most of these bullets already. What I'll highlight on this is there's a lot of good educational information regarding flood preparation on the county websites, both at the Office of Emergency Management website and flood control. We encourage the community to visit those sites. If they have any challenges finding that information, please reach out to our offices and we'll help guide them to that information. And with that, I will pass it over to Lisa.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm here today to talk a little bit about what will happen if there are floods and how we can work with the community to get them through the process, particularly those properties that live along creeks. Next slide, please. So this is very tiny print, and I'm not expecting you to read it, but this is just our flow chart of how we work through this process. We actually established this for the 2023 storms in January because we had a number of applicants coming in because they had damage when they lived along creeks. And essentially it lays out what happens in the inland areas and when you don't need a permit and when you do need a permit, as well as the coastal zone areas, which almost always require a permit for things. But essentially, if you're inland, you have some damage along a creek, if you want to come back in, stack some rocks, put some willows in to secure that bank, that's no permit. And we help guide them through that process. If you're going to construct a wall, you're going to put grout in, that becomes a structure, and then you need a building permit. So this just lays out that process for us. So it's great that we have this already established in the event that we see a lot of damage from storms. Next slide, please. There's also damage that occurs to structures, right? So sometimes you'll have water damage to your drywall. You might have damage to the integrity of your structural supports or something done to your foundation through debris flow or whatnot. So this is the type of work that you'll do with our building and safety department. So next slide, please. So the steps to that we will work with applicants on is if they are concerned about whether or not their structure is safe to enter, they need to call building and safety and schedule an inspection, and they will come out and determine whether or not they do a rough assessment about whether or not you can enter the building or not enter the building. But it's a safety assessment essentially. Then they need to move on to hire a professional that will assess the actual damage to the structure and come up with a plan to make the repairs, and then they'll submit a building permit application online. Next slide. And so, if people have questions or concerns, we have office hours where people can set up appointments either virtually or on the phone or in person. There are walk-in hours, so we recommend people take advantage of those if they do have questions. And of course, we'll be, conducting outreach if we do see storms coming online. Next slide, please. So I want to move on to the concept of the ombudsman. This was an issue that came up during budget hearings, and the board had decided to provide some funding and create sort of this part-time position that could assist during storms. And initially, the planning and development was not the department that was identified, but as we worked through it with the CEO's office, it seemed that we were really poised to manage that position. Next slide, please. So essentially, this ombudsman role becomes a central point of contact for property owners that have to make repairs along creeks. It's a very confusing and involved process for people, as we've seen. We even had our own staff in P&D who lived on creeks that had some damage and really struggled with state and federal agencies and trying to figure out how to navigate it. Then this individual would serve as a liaison between the property owners and the other governmental agencies that are involved. We'll coordinate communication and then provide some guidance on the permitting to the property owners that are seeking these creek repairs. The reason I think P&D is in a good position to do this is because we do a lot of work with those agencies already, and so we have established relationships. And I think our goal is obviously to provide the smoothest path forward for people who have suffered some of these damages. Next slide, please. So what we're doing in terms of preparing for the El Nino storms is we're establishing a recovery team that will assist with permitting within P&D. We're developing a contact list of all of the agencies, either internal and state and federal. And then we're going to develop and put together a kickoff meeting prior to the rainy season with all of these agencies so that we can all be on the same page if it does indeed start to rain large volumes. And then as they work through the process, we will coordinate with the various agencies, internal and external, to help the applicants navigate it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Keep going here. So I'll talk through some of the, do you want to stop for questions or do you want me to continue presentation?
Sure. Supervisor Hartman has.
Sure. As I interpret what you presented, it's kind of after the fact, once there's damage. A lot of people I'm talking to now are trying to figure out how to prevent damage, and several are in really deeply incised creeks with a lot of vegetation growing along the side, and then vegetation comes down the creek and blocks, and then things go bad in a hurry. So could you talk about what somebody in that situation should be doing now?
Sure. Supervisor Hartman through the chair. So if they have concerns about the stability of their bank currently, I think it would be a good idea for them to start the process of looking at ways to stabilize it. And that could include adding boulders and putting in more vegetation now. It's maybe even a little bit late, because we are approaching the rainy season, because you want those plants to take root. But we're happy to work with anybody who has questions or concerns and kind of give them some guidance on what they might want to do. Sure.
Chair.
Supervisor Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Williams. I remember this discussion. I think it was Supervisor Hartman had brought it up about the ombudsman, and I'm a big supporter of that concept. What's the mechanism that it's getting funded by? Was that in the budget last year? Maybe this is for the CO.
Chair, Supervisor Nelson through the chair, yes, there was $50,000 put away in the current year budget.
Okay, thank you. I'll have some more comments about that later.
And while we're at it, it's just important to indicate that in some cases this is not possible, but generally flood control's preference is for wider channel, because increased channelization and stabilization, hardening the banks, that will exacerbate channelization, increases velocity for downstream users. So what we want to do is always try to slow down the water when possible. So wider banks, V-shaped banks as opposed to vertical banks is what we're hoping for. Please proceed.
Thank you. If I can have the presentation back up. Great, thank you. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing as a county to prepare and have our agencies and our staff ready to respond, and then I'll talk a little bit about what the community can do to prepare as well. So as a county, we've hosted multiple concepts moving forward. We've already hosted a multi-agency, multi-department county tabletop exercise where we sat down and talked through what are the potential scenarios, concerns. We're also having some coordination meetings moving forward, talking to flood control, public works, National Weather Service, fire, law, all of our partner agencies, our cities, to talk through all of those considerations. Walter mentioned earlier the downstream agencies for the two major reservoirs that we have. We are having pre-meetings with those agencies. So we're having a lot of pre-meetings to talk through our considerations of when we should be recommending public protective actions, and when it's a consideration of discussion, sharing of resources, activations, those types of considerations. We're also doing some EOC training and considerations here. We've OEM, Sheriff, and the Fire Department have hosted some all hazards evacuation training where we've met with deputies and firefighters and OEM, and we've talked about the process of determining those protective actions. How do we do notifications? How do those concepts work and get implemented? We're rolling out phased implementation of state and federal online trainings for all county employees. And we have EOC training scheduled between now and December to support all staff in trainings to make sure that they're ready to respond to the Emergency Operations Center. The EOC itself as a facility, the Emergency Operations Center, we're working on refining our alerting and community information on our website, how we do our emergency alerts, refining our language now. making sure we have it translated. We have an EOC activation plan for during construction, just for your awareness. I know many of the board and community members are aware of construction there, so we're making sure we know how we're going to activate that facility. And then we also have an alternate EOC plan for the North County. This was a leadership project, just graduated this group, and they did a review and looked at how do we set up a North EOC. It's actually in this room, this facility, if we were needing to activate this North County concept. And then OEM has a grab and go plan, essentially. What do we need to grab from South County if possible to bring it up here, or what would we need to establish here if we cannot grab those items from South County? Community preparedness. This is what I really wanted to highlight. What can our community members do? And so I just want to talk through or remind the community about emergency protective actions, some of the ones you might see in a flood type event. Evacuation warnings and orders will typically come before the rain starts. We want community members to leave or evacuate prior to rain if possible, because we don't want to have them necessarily driving in hazardous conditions. Once it is significant, if there is significant rainfall, a flash flood warning, maybe we start to have some roads that are flooded, then residents might see a shelter in place where we ask them to stay in their homes, go to higher ground, and generally find an area in their home or their household that might be safer than trying to travel through roads that are flooded. These are all terms that you may see, and we highly encourage residents to be aware and familiar with these. They are also up on our website. I will always encourage our residents to register for Ready SBC alerts. Countywide, we have 14% registration. 14% of our residents are registered. So we have landlines are automatically in our system. Not many people have landlines anymore, so that's not as helpful as it used to be. So we encourage residents to go to readysbc.org to register. They can register up to 5 addresses within the county. Must register at least one contact method and one physical address. I know it sounds weird that I'm saying that, but sometimes people go in and put their address and then they don't necessarily complete it with a full phone number, email address. Highly encouraged for residents to have at least one phone number in there for text messages or phone calls, not just email, since most people, their emails don't actively ring on their phones, right? So we want that phone number in there if possible. Text message, we do reverse calls to landlines and cell phones, email, and it does have accessibility accommodations for anyone who may have issues with the deaf or hard of hearing and need that accessibility. We will use either ourselves or National Weather Service. So for flooding, often the National Weather Service is the lead for wireless emergency alerts, just so the community understands that. National Weather Service does that automatically through their systems, and so we won't always repeat a wireless emergency alert, but we will use those other reverse notifications, door-to-door notification by local law enforcement or public safety officials, and EAS is those ones that you'll get over the radio or TV. Lots of places to get incident information. One of the things that disaster social science tells us is that people will look for 3 places to confirm what they're supposed to do before they take that action. It doesn't matter that I notify them that they should evacuate. They're still going to look for at least 2 other places to verify that that's what they should be doing. And so we want to encourage and make sure people understand where else they can get that official information. And so these are just a few of those channels and opportunities to look for that information. I won't go through all of them. Individual preparedness. Ready SBC, you can just go to readysbc.org if you want the more direct link to storm readiness. It's up on the screen there. Now is the time, as Lisa mentioned, to take action to protect your home. Where did you have flooding? Did you have water back up at your back door? Where should you be putting sandbags? Sometimes it's hard to think of those things ahead of time before it starts raining. So think back to this last season. What were the issues or concerns that you had at your house? What can you do now? Through that link and also on the flood on Public Works website, there's a great manual about how to protect your home from floods. A little guide. Do you have an emergency plan? Do you know your local roads? If one always floods, do you know another way out of your community? Or if you don't, if there's only one road and that one always floods, should you consider either 1, evacuating proactively so you can get to and from work or take your kids to school, or 2, should you consider additional supplies at home? buy some extra groceries, have some flashlights and batteries, those kinds of readiness considerations before the rain comes. That comes to your emergency kit. And please, please, please get to know your neighbors. If there's an elderly resident nearby or somebody, maybe my daughter was a latchkey kid, meaning she was 12 years old and at home, before and after school. And I knew my neighbors were looking out for her. So be aware of your neighbors. Know who else might need help in these situations, please. And with that, and I apologize, I did not put the recommendations from the board letter, but the recommendations are to receive and file a report on county preparations for possible strong storm season resulting from predicted El Nino conditions, and determine the above action is not a project under CEQA. And if there's any questions, we're here to answer those.
Further questions from the board? Supervisor Hartman.
Are we at risk of debris flows? I mean, I think the rule of thumb is 5 years for the watershed to heal, and then it's less likely, but could you comment on that?
So I'll make Supervisor through the chair, I'll make an initial comment, and then I don't know if Walter wants to add to that. National Weather Service is officially not monitoring any areas in our county anymore. So we are past any official monitoring areas associated with fire burn scars. So we do the K Fire, Alisal, the Montecito area, all of those are out of any official monitoring. Now, anytime we end up with significant ongoing concepts of saturation, then some of those conditions change and some of those recommendations might change. Walter? Okay.
Supervisor Capps.
Thank you, Director Hubbard and everyone. You certainly have given us a challenge with that 14% sign-ups to Ready SBC. I'm actually astounded that it's that low, so we've got our work cut out for us to get everybody signed up, especially all that we've been through as a community, so I will do my best. But I wanted to ask, for me growing up here, El Nino signified, meant when I was a kid, scary hot winds. Can you speak about the dry, what could happen and how we should be preparing for a dry El Nino with debris and fire potential, et cetera?
Supervisor through the chair, not having the background fully in weather and some of our National Weather Service partners, we did ask some questions around the expectations of storms and whether they would be warm or cold. So with those storms, there is the expectation of higher winds, warmer storms, so higher snow level, not necessarily having that snow level on the 154 like we did this past year. Yeah. But I did not specifically ask questions to the impacts if it was dry. So I'd have to get back to you with additional considerations on that.
Thank you. And I fully understand that our concern as of late for sure has been wet and flooding and our basins and all that. So I understand that, but I imagine it's similar to just fire preparation in general with branches, et cetera, but something to be on the lookout for. Thank you.
Mine, I don't know whether this year was categorized as a dry or wet El Nino, but we had an El Nino a few years back in which we had almost no rain because the storm systems were farther out to sea. We definitely had waves, but we didn't have a whole lot of rain. Is that what you would call a dry El Nino?
Supervisor Williams, the flood control district doesn't really focus on El Nino years and non-El Nino years. We just approach it every year as if it's going to be the worst storm we've ever seen. And we do that just so we stay vigilant. This last storm season had more rain than what we had expected, but again, we were prepared to deal with that.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, can I get a motion?
Sorry, I thought.
Oh, Supervisor Nelson.
I was waiting for public comment.
Is there public comment?
Chair Williams and members of the board, we have no request to speak.
All right, can I have a couple questions or comments? I think.
I appreciate your honesty. I have questions that are really comments.
Yeah. A couple things I just want to get out there is getting back to the Santa Maria River and the work that's being done out there. I just really want to echo the appreciation for the city of Guadalupe and the farmers, as well as our county staff, public works staff getting after it. I mean, it's a Herculean effort. We're even getting compliments from George Alvarez, which means we're doing something right, I guess. That's a pretty high bar. So I really just want to thank everybody that's been involved in that project and continues to, the contractors, R.W. Scott and Vince Lopez and Sons. And so I can't let this item go by without thanking all of them for their work. On the Twitchell issue, that's in my district now, post redistricting, and I've got a chance to really dig in deep, and it's something that I'm really looking forward to getting after. I think the public needs to understand that some of the damage that was done in Guadalupe was because of those releases, which was part of a rule that was set up in the 50s when the Twitchell was originally built that has not been updated to reflect current meteorological standards or technology, and so those releases are happening to the detriment of downstream properties, and specifically that ultimately in fact impacted the Guadalupe the Western Santa Maria Valley. So that's a really important thing for us, as well as the groundwater recharge. So Twitchell's releasing water right now, and all that water actually stops and goes underground and begins to recharge our groundwater basin about Benita School Road. For perspective for everybody, we released over 70,000 acre-feet of water from Twitchell that could have been held back to be released at this time of year so that we could get additional recharge. And again, to put that perspective, when we talk about the state water project, if we had gotten 100% delivery of water to our county, that would have only been 45,000 acre-feet. I think we only got about 10%. So that's 140 times amount of state delivery that we could have held back for recharge for the Santa Maria Valley, which is, as we know, is about 80% of our groundwater, our water supply for our county. So it is, the most acute need obviously is dealing with the issues at Santa Maria River in Guadalupe. But then I think the next step for our county is really to get after working with the Army Corps and other partners to hold back additional water at Twitchell. So I just wanted to make sure that the public understands that's what we're after. I know Supervisor Lavanino, myself and public works staff will be making some additional lobbying efforts to get that done. And the last maybe comment is I am concerned about the ombudsman. I know that planning and development, I thank you guys for taking it on, but I know there's a lot of other challenges in your department, and I know that that concerns me, to be honest. I know that staffing issues in long range and building and other places continue to be a challenge. So I know that you guys don't say no when you're asked, but I just want to maybe for the CEO's office, making sure that is fully staffed in a way that can get accomplished. I would absolutely love planning to have that in the future, but I just don't know if it's the right time. That's I wanted to make sure I put that out there, because getting these dollars deployed this year is really important. And Lisa and her team have a lot on their plate right now. So I'm just alerting that is a concern of at least one supervisor to making sure that's operationalized in the future. I think it's a good idea, and I like to see it piloted this year and maybe be considered in the future for ongoing funding, especially as Mr. Rubicawa talks about, that we have to prepare every year like it's going to potentially be the worst year. We have storms like we did last year in non-El Nino years, and we have impacts of wildfires like we did with the Thomas Fire and debris flow. So I think we always have to be vigilant in Santa Barbara County, and having a mechanism to help private property owners navigate the regulatory hurdles that are out there is really important to what we do here in the county. So much of our property is privately owned, especially in some of these waterways. It is necessary that us, the experts in a lot of this, and have the relationship with these agencies, are able to help the general public navigate that. So I'm a big fan of that. I want to thank Supervisor Hartman for highlighting that last year, because I think it's a good use of our resources. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no public comment and no lights on, can we get a motion?
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. D2.
Chair Williams and members of the board, departmental item number 2 is from the Public Works Department, Board of Directors, Water Agency. It is a hearing to consider recommendations regarding the Santa Barbara County Water Resources Update 2023 Groundwater Basin Summary.
Chair Williams, members of the board, Happy New Year. October 1st was the start of a new state and federal water year. This presentation is an annual update on the state of water supplies countywide and an overview of what the County Water Agency and its partner agencies are doing to ensure reliable, sustainable supplies into the future. I think you already had a little bit of a preview of some of the things we'll talk about here from that last item, but we'll try not to be too redundant. Water year 2023 was the wettest in the last 25 years since the record-setting 1998. Our climate in Santa Barbara County and California more generally have extremely high interannual variability. We can have wet years with more than double the average precipitation, like last year, and dry years with a third of the average. We also have persistent trends that can last a decade. For example, the 1990s were quite wetter than average, and the 2010s significantly drier. Here's a longer look at the data going back 100 years. The black line shows a moving 10-year average of annual precipitation at Gibraltar Dam in the middle of the county. You can see we were recently at the lowest 10-year average in recorded history. This chart further shows the interannual variability with multi-year trends of low and high precipitation, as you see the black line moving up and down for significant periods of time. Under a warming climate, current science predicts that this variability will be exacerbated with more precipitation falling in fewer years with longer dry spells in between. I want to touch briefly on precipitation forecasts for this winter, and Chair Williams, this might be relevant to your question on the last item. You have probably heard news reports that this winter will be a strong El Nino. A common misperception is that every strong El Nino results in a higher than average precipitation year. It's true that many of our wettest years, such as 1983 and 1998, have been strong El Ninos, indicated by the dark red bars on the graph. However, some strong El Nino years have been significantly drier than normal, such as 1988 and 2016. This last year actually had weak La Nina conditions, and we had an extremely wet year, as previously mentioned. In the Water Resources Division, both at the Water Agency and Flood Control, we plan every year as if it may be an extremely wet year or the start of an extended drought. Over the next few slides, I'd like to discuss the impact of this last wet year on the various parts of the overall water portfolio in the county. This graph shows water supplies used by public water systems within the county over time. As a whole, the county relies most on groundwater, which is blue, Lake Cachuma in orange, and state water in gray, which is imported from Northern California. However, the specific mix varies widely over time depending on climatic conditions and available supplies. So while we're evaluating overall county water, depending on climatic conditions, please note that this chart does not include groundwater used by agriculture, mutual water companies, small water systems, and domestic wells. Groundwater is roughly 80% of the total water used countywide, if you include not just public systems. Most residents in the county are served by one of a network of purveyors shown on this map, each of which has invested in its own unique portfolio of water supplies. So while we're evaluating overall county water supplies, the particular supply situation of a given resident depends on where they live and the specific water portfolio held by their purveyor. Now we'll walk through the status of each of the major sources of supply. Groundwater is the largest source in the county, currently making up roughly 80% of its supplies. It's relied on most heavily by North County purveyors, agriculture, small water systems, and domestic well owners. Groundwater is typically a smaller portion of the portfolios of South County purveyors, with some exceptions. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA, has started to take effect, and groundwater sustainability agencies are slowly beginning to manage groundwater in their basins. Included in the board package for this item is our annual Groundwater Basin Summary Report, which details overall water level status for the major alluvial basins in the county. In the recent drought, some portions of most basins in the county were at or near historical low levels. This last wet winter has started the process of recharging most of these basins, especially in the portions near rivers and streams. However, in most cases, it takes multiple years of above average rainfall to bring water levels up significantly. This map shows the major alluvial groundwater basins in the county. Cuyama has submitted a Groundwater Sustainability Plan, or GSP, that was ultimately approved by the Department of Water Resources, or DWR. The Cuyama GSA has begun implementing the GSP, including the first phase of a series of pumping reductions in the central portion of the basin. Major pumpers in the valley have initiated an adjudication process, which will proceed in parallel with the GSP implementation, but does not remove the need for the GSA to continue to manage the basin. GSAs in the San Antonio Creek and San Ynez River valleys basins have submitted plans in January 2022, and DWR is required to provide a review by this upcoming January. Montecito submitted a GSP in May of this year, and Carpinteria will soon be submitting their own. The Santa Maria and Goleta basins have been adjudicated and are not subject to SGMA. The next major water supply is surface water from the San Ynez River. There are three major reservoirs, Cachuma, Gibraltar, and Jameson. We'll focus today on the largest of these, Cachuma. Cachuma is currently 93% full. Originally built in 1954 by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, storage has decreased over time to the current 192,978 acre-feet. The annual yield has decreased over time as well due to sedimentation and federal biological opinions mandating fish flow releases. It is important to note that unlike many other reservoirs in California, Cachuma has no space dedicated to flood control. However, a protocol called Modified Storm Operations allows reclamation and county flood control to flexibly manage storage in the reservoir to allow for some downstream protection, while still maximizing water supply benefits. We anticipate that the Modified Storm Ops will be implemented this winter as well due to the high starting water levels of the lake. As the contractor with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the Water Agency just last week executed a 3-year contract extension to provide water from the lake to 5 member units. Once some fisheries issues are resolved through a new federal biological opinion, we will be negotiating a new long-term water supply contract. For a little bit of context, here's the historical record of Cachuma storage. Since it last spilled in 2011, Cachuma was in a period of extremely low storage, with a brief respite coming from wet years in water years 2017 and 2019. Of course, this last winter filled the lake to capacity, and Cachuma was in a state of spill from the end of January through the end of June. This allowed surplus water to be made available at no cost to the 5 member units. And one of the member units, Goleta Water District, was able to inject 814 acre-feet into their groundwater basin to replenish their supplies of that free surplus water. Twitchell Reservoir on the Cuyama River in North County is another Bureau of Reclamation reservoir. It stores Cuyama River floodwaters for release to recharge the Santa Maria groundwater basin and is operated by the Santa Maria Valley Water Conservation District. There's no direct use of this water. Unlike Cachuma, roughly half the reservoir space is reserved for flood control storage, with releases overseen by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The Water Agency is working with the Army Corps, Bureau of Reclamation, and local partners on exploring ways to modify the Water Control Manual governing flood releases to both enhance water conservation and better manage flood releases. Twitchell is currently releasing stored water from last winter to recharge the groundwater basin and should be mostly empty by the time significant inflows begin this winter. This graph shows how Twitchell fills up sporadically, then lies empty until the next wet year. The next major source of supply is imported water from the State Water Project. Water is brought in from Northern California via the Coastal Branch Aqueduct. It supplies several purveyors in North County before terminating in Lake Cachuma for conveyance to the South Coast. Bringing in more than 45,000 acre-feet of state water to the county was approved by the voters in 1991. However, this is a variable amount, and in recent years, allocations have ranged from as low as 5% to up to 100% just this year. The state water system in our county is operated by the Central Coast Water Authority, although the County Flood Control and Water Conservation District remains the contractor. State water was a valuable supplement during the 2011 to 2018 drought, with some purveyors nearly entirely reliant upon it. Desalination is a growing part of the overall portfolio. The only major desal plant in the county is currently the city of Santa Barbara's, which originally opened in 1991, was subsequently decommissioned during the very wet 1990s, then reactivated in 2016. This is a local, drought-resistant supply of 3,125 acre-feet per year. It also has regional benefits beyond the city, with an agreement last year, or several years ago, to provide about 1,400 acre-feet per year to Montecito over a 50-year period. The plant is permitted to produce up to 10,000 acre-feet per year, so it could be significantly expanded as needed in the future. The Water Agency is working with San Luis Obispo County on exploring options for a regional plant that could provide water for both counties, and Vandenberg is continuing to evaluate desalination options on the base. Another local drought-resistant supply is recycled water. Currently, local purveyors produce recycled water for direct, non-potable reuse, primarily for landscaping. Indirect potable reuse is where wastewater is treated and injected into a groundwater basin for future use. Carpinteria Valley Water District's Advanced Purification Project is intended to serve this purpose. Finally, direct potable reuse is where treated wastewater is delivered directly to customers. The Water Agency recently partnered with Laguna Sanitation District to study the potential for indirect potable reuse from this county facility. The report, released in August, identified two very promising potential options for injecting treated wastewater into the groundwater basin. A follow-on study and legal analysis are currently in process. We also partnered with all of the wastewater treatment agencies in the county to do a countywide indirect potable reuse evaluation. That report is expected to be finalized later this fall. It will include a high-level overview of all the agencies countywide, as well as a deeper dive onto 3 different agencies that volunteered and requested that we do so, including the cities of Solvang and Buellton and Summerland Sanitary District. So that's a summary of where we are. I'd like to briefly talk about the Water Agency's role in managing supplies and responding to drought. Our primary role is partnership and collaboration. In everything we do, we are partnering with other agencies and trying to maintain a regional, countywide perspective. We coordinate regional programs such as the Integrated Regional Water Management Planning Program, the Regional Water Efficiency Partnership, and Sustainable Groundwater Management. We have a long-standing existing program with 9 other agencies for precipitation enhancement, commonly known as cloud seeding, in the Kachuma and Twitchell areas. Finally, through our work with GSAs in doing stormwater planning, we are working to facilitate projects to recharge groundwater with urban stormwater and flood flows. We also participate in a countywide drought task force with Environmental Health and the Office of Emergency Management. I just want to highlight quickly our Regional Water Efficiency Program, which is our water conservation program. We coordinate this program with 15 water purveyors in the county. RWEP helps ensure consistent conservation messaging, provides public reference information, educates landscape professionals, works with local schools, and conducts water audits for the Green Business Program. All this helps to contribute to sustainable water use when the supplies are limited. The Water Agency also funds a mobile irrigation lab in partnership with the Kachuma Resource Conservation District that assists agriculture and large landscapes with water efficiency projects. I'd like to highlight a grant that our conservation staff pursued and won in partnership with several local purveyors. They won a $500,000 Bureau of Reclamation landscape rebate grant, which will rebate homeowners who replace a lawn with WaterWise landscaping. While the Water Agency is the grantee, programs will be implemented by each purveyor to their specific customers. With all of the work put into conservation messaging, we are glad to report that countywide residential conservation is roughly 25% lower. Residential water use is roughly 25% lower than it was 10 years ago, prior to the start of the drought. The solid lines on this chart show Santa Barbara County conservation versus statewide conservation in the dashed lines. These data are collected by the State Water Resources Control Board and show the significant progress that county residents have made to reducing their reliance on our supplies. With that, staff recommends that your board receive and file both this report and the Groundwater Basin Summary Report and determine that these actions are exempt from CEQA. Thank you very much.
We have some questions and comments. Supervisor Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Williams. Thank you, Mr. Young. Great presentation. I'm really interested in some of the water efficiency programs that your agency is going to be champion. You talked about this project where there would be reimbursement or grants to homeowners. Can you go a little further on that? I think that's something that the public would be interested with.
Yeah, absolutely. So in partnership with a number of the water purveyors who were interested in the county, we pursued a Water Smart grant from the Bureau of Reclamation. And so what will happen is each city or water district will implement it slightly differently. They'll develop their own parameters for what a water efficient landscape looks like. But in general, residents who are looking to replace their lawns and reduce their water bills will be able to get a portion of that project refunded by their city or water district. So the city or water district will set up the program, then they will submit invoices to the county will submit invoices to the Bureau, and then everything will get paid for. So typically, reimbursement rates range from 25 to 50%, depending on the type of project and how it's set up by the particular city or water district.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that. I'm also curious about other bigger projects. You know, we're exploring, I know with the Parks Department, some of our play fields, soccer fields, baseball fields, about converting those from current uses of of natural grass to maybe artificial grass. Are there other grant programs out there? Are there other ways that we can incentivize for our own organization to move in that direction, or other municipalities or that might own fields that they want to go ahead and make those conversions to?
Yeah, Supervisor Nelson, through the chair. You may recall that several years ago we brought to your board the countywide Integrated Stormwater Resources Plan, and that was a plan that was mandated by the State Water Resources Control Board in order to be eligible for Prop 1 grant funding for stormwater projects. And these are the types of projects where you take urban runoff and you might take a park or a soccer field and find a way to store stormwater flows on that field during the winter, let them percolate into the groundwater basin, and then it dries out and you have a nice park later. So a number of projects were identified throughout the county through that program, and my understanding is that one or two of those have begun going forward, but implementation has been very slow. So we continue to have discussions with our partners to find ways to incentivize those programs. I know Supervisor Hartman is very interested in this. She's been talking about ways that we can find as the water agency to help incentivize these programs. So it's certainly something we'll be looking forward to doing more of in the future.
Great. I wanted to just throw out there for you that the 4th District is also very interested in some of those projects. So let's dust that off for our office and take a look at what some of the opportunities that might be for my constituents. The other about the recycled water projects, I know we're moving forward maybe with Laguna Sanitation and exploring that. Can you go in a little bit more depth about what that might look like for providing additional water supply in the Santa Maria Valley?
Absolutely. Supervisor Nelson, through the chair. So our consultant Carollo Engineers identified two potential projects for Laguna Sanitation District. One is a smaller, quicker, cheaper, 500,000 gallon per day project, and another would be a much more expensive, more involved, but 1.7 million gallon per day project. That water would be treated to a very, very high standard, potable drinking water standard, then injected into the groundwater basin, and then pulled back out. Typically, there's a state requirement that it's in the groundwater basin for 60 days before you pull it out at a minimum, and then could be then served as a potable drinking water supply. So in addition to further engineering studies, as you know, the Santa Maria groundwater basin is adjudicated, so there will be some legal issues in figuring out how to store that water and be able to purvey it. The County Water Agency is working with County Council and the Laguna Sanitation District to explore what those legal avenues are going to be in order to be able to purvey that water.
Well, that's really exciting for the Santa Maria Valley. For so long, we really only had two options: State Water Project, which has been owned and operated by the Central Coast Water Agency, and groundwater. I just think it's really important for our board to prioritize other options and get them legally recognized, whether that's recycled options like this or potable direct to potable reuse, or recycled options or conservation options. I think those are all things that we should explore to not only satisfy the needs of growth in our community, but also create some independence and opportunities for some of our constituents. So thank you for all the work you're doing there.
Supervisor Hartman.
Thank you. A couple points. Has the state rules on direct potable reuse gone final yet?
Supervisor Hartman, through the chair, yes, they recently did come out, and they are fairly strenuous, and so direct potable reuse projects will be quite expensive. It's something that we looked at in this indirect reuse evaluation countywide that will be coming out later this month, because we wanted to make sure, hey, does it make more sense to do direct potable versus indirect potable? And because of the way the requirements are written, and rightly so, we're taking treated wastewater and serving it as drinking water. They're very strenuous, and so those projects are going to be extremely expensive. And so in most cases, at least in our county, we're looking primarily at indirect versus direct.
And when that study is finished for Solvang, Buellton, and Summerlin, will you bring that back to the board? I would hope to see it maybe even as a D item, if that's possible.
Certainly. The Water Agency would be happy to bring that back to the board.
And then would like to talk a little bit more about stormwater capture. Earlier, the previous presentation, we were talking about flood control, and much of our system for water has been designed to shunt water, often polluted, to the ocean as quickly as possible. So we've designed a whole infrastructure to do just that. And now we recognize that it's an invaluable resource. And so how do we redesign to capture the stormwater, to slow the flows, to get more infiltration into the groundwater basins? And our county has done a really good study. But talking to Matt just before this, it doesn't pencil out if you're looking at just one benefit for recharge. But if we can get triple bottom line, where it's cleaning water, it's recharging water, and perhaps it's for athletic fields or swales or some other benefit, maybe we can have a plan that we actually implement. And so I was delighted to hear that Supervisor Nelson is keenly interested in this, because I'd like to bring that study back. I know we've been working on the housing element, we're working on a recreation master plan, but we tend to be looking at those in different silos. And what are our highest value recharge areas, and how do we protect those? How do we enhance their capacity for recharge? And so that's the question I have, and I'd like to be able to take that study further, because whether it's a wet or dry year, we know over time we're going to have more dry years, and we want to recapture this water. So that might be some direction we could offer. One final point I'd like to make, and that is that Matt has been the leader in the groundwater sustainability agencies. That's really been a pioneering and very sensitive, delicate negotiation wherever people are talking about water, groundwater rights, and what's groundwater, what's surface water. And you've just done it masterfully, and we're all appreciative of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I piggyback?
Sure.
Sorry. I just wanted to go about the stormwater recharge, talking about the Santa Maria Valley. It wasn't only Twitchell where there was a lot of lost opportunity. We have something called Guadalupe Lake, which is actually a water area that brings water through, the Orchid area that comes into some of our agricultural areas in West Santa Maria by Tanglewood, and eventually goes out Solomon Creek, which connects to the Santa Maria River right about the entrance to the Guadalupe Dunes. And so that's another opportunity there where that water, instead of going out to the Pacific Ocean, we should be exploring some areas for that to get back into our groundwater system. I know there's a clay lens there in that area, and that's why it doesn't percolate, and so we need to find a way to get it out to some of the sandy soils so that we can get it back into our system. So I know that you met with some of the farmers in my area to look at that during the stormy times, but we may not see rains like this for another decade, but the planning starts today, right? So we need to be have that forethought, because when those times come, you always wish that somebody would have thought about this in the past. But obviously we talk about conservation and desalinization and other priorities and during the droughts, but as soon as the rains comes, the political will starts to erode, pun intended. And so I think it's time for us to make sure that we stay vigilant on this, so that we can put the infrastructure in place to have a sustainable community moving forward.
Supervisor Capson, we do have one public comment.
Great. Yeah, thank you to my colleagues, and thank you. I just wanted to double down on this recharge. That's you made the point and questions that I was going to bring up as well, and I have to directly because I know we all felt with these storms in January and February this feeling of like how are we capturing this? And there was quite a bit in the press about different communities, different counties. I believe LA County and also inland was rethinking their levee system, et cetera. So I'm just very interested in how it does pencil out, and I just want to understand there's a study that's coming back, or there's a study that was produced. Help me out there.
Supervisor Capps, through the chair. There are two studies that we've been referencing. The first is the 2021 Santa Barbara Countywide Integrated Stormwater Resources Plan. That one is done, and it identifies a number of the best areas in the county to do stormwater projects where you're taking primarily urban runoff, capturing it, and finding ways to infiltrate it to a groundwater basin.
Okay.
The study that Supervisor Hartman asked to come back is a countywide indirect potable reuse study that should be completed this month. It's looking at taking treated wastewater and finding ways to put that in great groundwater basins.
Right. There was sort of a lively meeting last fall, I believe, on that topic. So that report is forthcoming, I understand.
That's correct.
And I just want to appreciate this, your work, because you have a big job, and this kind of all of the above approach when it comes to water. And we can see it here with this presentation. I just want to say thanks.
Let's go to public comment.
Chair Williams and members of the board, we have one request to speak. We'll move to Roberta Jefe via Zoom.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Okay, thanks. Good morning. My name's Roberta Jaffe. I'm a farmer and resident in the Cuyama Valley. And so I've been really involved with our GSA. I've been a standing advisory committee member since the inception of that committee. So I've had the opportunity to work with Matt Young and the Water Agency, and I want to both express a lot of gratitude on behalf of the Cuyama Valley, our residents, first of all, for the current report, which summarizes a very complicated situations, I think in a very both efficient and clear, transparent way. I remember when the Board of Supervisors approved the joint powers, the JPA, setting up the Cuyama GSA. I think it was 7 to 8 years ago. And I remember my public comment at that time was asking the board to be very aware that you are the direct, we really have no local representation in the Cuyama Valley, that you would be our representatives in the GSA process, and really asked you to take that into consideration. And I'm really happy and pleased to be able to say 7 to 8 years later, I really feel that you have represented us very well. Thanks to both Supervisor Williams and Lavanino's offices and their commitment, and a special thanks to Matt Young and the CWA team who've had ongoing participation in all of everything from tech advisory meetings to helping educate me and others on the Standing Advisory Committee as to what a hydrograph was to start off with. And now I feel I've almost able to get a degree in hydrogeology. So, and a lot of that is thanks to the work of your team, and I really appreciate that. I do have one question, and I'm wondering if there are any plans to update Santa Barbara County's environmental threshold for groundwater. The last time it was updated was 1992, so over 30 years ago, and it's very outdated. And Cuyama Basin, for example, has a lot of current data that would be available, I assume, for a revision to this threshold. And since this is such an important threshold and used in consideration of new projects, I hope that it can somehow get on a priority list. Thank you very much, and thanks for your continued work with the Cuyama Basin.
Mr. Young, did you want to say anything about that? And I also want to thank the active members of the Koyama community. And it should note that my understanding is a wet year last year really did nothing to change the basic problem we have out there. It was a little blip on the radar screen, if anything, and that with residents are increasingly feeling pressure. Before, they were feeling the pressure of possibly losing water sources, and now they're feeling the pressure of having to retain attorneys because of the adjudication initiated by Bolthouse and Grimway. And you should all know that the residents have called for a carrot boycott because really the amount that residents have to be able to stand up for themselves in this fight, they feel like it's a David versus Goliath struggle, and they increasingly feel like that we're just at the beginning of an adjudication that will cost each resident tens of thousands of dollars to represent themselves legally. And so this is a hot topic, especially in the Koyama Valley, and because of there's only hundreds of residents as opposed to thousands of residents in the township. They have called upon people outside of Koyama, Santa Barbara, and the rest of the state to join them in their efforts. Mr. Young?
Mr. Chair, so Ms. Jaffe referenced the groundwater threshold in the county's CEQA thresholds manual. That document is maintained by planning, and I see Ms. Plowman has made her way into the room, so she may have a comment also. But the County Water Agency, I think, has provided technical support in the past as some of these thresholds were updated, and so we would be happy to do so in the future on county planning's timeline as they make their way through various revisions in that document.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so we're well aware of the need to update some of those thresholds in our document, and is something that we are looking at adding into our work program, but they are outdated. And we'll work with the water agency to do that.
Supervisor Nelson.
Yes, and I think as we look at the thresholds, I mean, there's a changing legal landscape, right? So those thresholds were put in place prior to adjudications and GSAs, and I think that's probably should be considered whether we need to be duplicative there. I think some of those things, the idea behind it, an adjudication or the GSAs are a management strategy that's more holistic, that still recognizes property rights, but also at the same time the scarcity issue. So, and I think it's not one size that fits all, which is the unfortunate part that public sometimes has a hard time understanding. Is what might be significant in one area may be insignificant in another, and trying to make that work in a county as diverse as ours is always going to be a challenge. So if we do go down that route, I just want to make sure that we're taking into consideration that we're not creating additional layers of governance that are unnecessary or being taken care of by some other legal mechanism.
Yeah, Supervisor Nelson, through the chair, it's a very good point how different the landscape is since the time we drafted those, and so we will definitely need to be considering the GSAs and the management plans that are coming out of that, and how they're going to work with our thresholds so that we can actually do the CEQA analysis that's required of us. So yes, we will be doing that.
Okay, no more public comment. Lights are off. Is there?
I'd like to make a motion.
Supervisor Hartman.
So I would move A through C, including direction to return with an indirect potable reuse study when that's done as a D item, and return with the stormwater capture study for a refresher and with options that we can invest in for capture.
I'll second, and also just thank you for your efforts, continued funds for conservation. That's a great victory. there's still a lot of wasted water out there. Just, sometimes ones that are harder than water leaking down a street. Grass types that use more water than other grass types throughout different landscaping choices. Options for areas have smaller grass footprints or no grass footprints and convert to other landscaping uses. So highly encourage the work and hope that that some of the success that has been seen in some agencies at doing this can be spread throughout the county. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. D3.
Chair Williams and members of the board, departmental item number 3 is from the Planning and Development Department. It is a hearing to consider recommendations regarding an appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of the revision to permit condition number 38, MM Bio 16, Golden Eagle permit take permit for Strauss Wind Energy Project, case number 23 RVP 31. This project is located within the 3rd and 4th districts. As I previously announced, I would like to note for the record that we have received a request from the department to withdraw this item from today's agenda and approve the revised recommended actions to accept the withdrawal.
I understand we need to take public comment on the withdrawal. Is there any public comment?
Chair Williams and members of the board, we do have one request to speak. We'll move to Gordon McDonald via Zoom.
Mr. McDonald?
Gordon, can you hear us? You've been unmuted on our end. If you can try to unmute yourself on your end as well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, apologies, I was speaking away there. I was just going to correct the record and advise that it's actually Gordon McDougall. I'm the CEO of BIVA. I didn't have any particular comment to say, but just wanted to thank the planning department and everybody involved for their patience with us with this and thank them for their efforts. And just make it clear that we obviously will be meeting all the obligations required of us.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall. Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, I'm just curious, while Mr. McDougall's on the line, when will those windmills start moving now that you guys have satisfied or at least have a solution to this condition?
We have a couple of minor things to get sorted, and then we go into sort of live commissioning, hopefully as early as this weekend. And once we've sufficiently tested and commissioned everything, we hope to be up and running during this month in full operation.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Since you are not here in person, I'll just tell you that everyone's eyes went up and you filled the room with some optimism.
Well, I thank everybody for their support. I recognise it's been a long path getting there, and we've got a number of things still to do, but we're very keen to make sure that we are delivering a wind farm which the whole county of Santa Barbara can be proud of.
And we need to take a vote on the withdrawal? Okay. Can I get a motion on the withdrawal?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And I also want to thank staff for all their work on this and its previous approvals. Thank you. We are going to recess to closed session. Can we have a preview of closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The board has one item for closed session. It's existing litigation, and it's the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors sitting as the Board of Supervisors and also sitting as the Board of Directors for Santa Barbara County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. The case is City of Goleta versus Southern California Gas Company. And the time estimate is 15 minutes.
Oh, and I'll give us a little more time than that. I know I'm normally return in half an hour. Oh, 20 minutes.
Or earlier.
About 20 minutes. We're reconvening from closed session. Can we have a report from closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The board met in closed session on one item of existing litigation, City of Goleta versus Southern California Gas Company, and the board took no reportable action.
We are adjourned to Tuesday, October 10th in Santa Maria.